I have a meeting with my director tomorrow. I have to tell her the deadline for the new project is impossible. I've spent 2 days thinking about how to say it. If I just agree to the deadline, my team will fail, and I'll look incompetent. If I say it's impossible, I'll look negative and not like a team player. It feels like a trap. There's no right way to say it. How do you even start a conversation like that?
The problem isn't the conversation, it's the goal.
The goal? The goal is to get her to change the deadline.
That's what most people think. They think the goal of a disagreement is to win, to convince the other person that you are right and they are wrong.
Well, in this case, I am right. The deadline is not realistic.
It might be, but if you walk into that room with the goal of winning, you have already lost, because you've turned it into a battle.
So what's the alternative? Just agree with everything?
The alternative is to change the goal. The goal isn't to win the argument, it's to solve the problem together. The real problem isn't the disagreement itself. It's the assumption that only one person can be right.
I'm not sure I see the difference. In the end, either the deadline changes or it doesn't.
Let's explore that. Think about how these conversations usually start. Most people lead with their conclusion. They say, "This deadline is impossible," or "I disagree with this approach."
Right. Be direct, get to the point.
It sounds efficient. People believe it's honest and clear, but it quietly fails. The moment you state your opposition, the other person stops listening to your reasons. They are already preparing their counterargument. Their brain has switched into defense mode.
So you can't start by disagreeing.
You can't start with your conclusion. You must start by showing you understand their conclusion. You start with their perspective, not yours.
How? By saying, "I understand you want this done in 4 weeks." It sounds weak, like I'm already giving in.
It's not weak, it's smart. You're not just stating their position, you're showing you understand the logic behind it, the value in it. You need to genuinely validate their point of view first.
Okay, so in my meeting, I'd say something like, "I understand why we want a 4-week deadline. It would put us ahead of the competition and show great momentum."
Exactly. How does that feel different?
It feels less aggressive. I'm starting from a place of agreement almost.
You are starting from a place of shared reality. You aren't saying the deadline is good. You are confirming that you understand the reasons for it. It makes the other person feel heard. And when people feel heard, they are more willing to listen.
Okay, I think I get that. I validate their perspective first, but then I still have to say my part. I still have to introduce the problem. How do I do that without it sounding like, "Yes, but you're wrong"?
This is the second turning point. Once you've shown you understand their side, you don't present a counterargument. Most people do. They say, "But my data shows something different," or "My experience tells me that won't work."
That sounds exactly what I would do. I'd show them my project plan, the resource calculations. I'd prove my point.
And then you are right back in a battle. You are fighting with facts. It becomes your data versus their data, your experience versus theirs. People believe that the best data should win, but that's not how humans work. An attack on our ideas can feel like an attack on us.
So what's the new way?
You don't present an argument. You present an observation.
An observation? What's the difference?
An argument is a judgment. An observation is a neutral piece of data. It's framed from your perspective, using I statements. It's not about them being wrong. It's about what you are seeing.
Give me an example.
Instead of saying your 4-week deadline is impossible because you haven't accounted for quality assurance, you could say this. First, you validate. I understand the 4-week deadline is important for our competitive position. Then you add your observation. My observation when I built the project plan is that the QA phase alone would require at least a week to avoid critical bugs. I'm concerned about how that fits into the current timeline.
That's very different. The first one sounds like an accusation. The second one sounds like a problem to be solved.
Precisely. You're not saying your plan is bad. You're saying here is a piece of information that might be missing from the puzzle. You are inviting them to look at the problem with you. It's collaborative, not confrontational.
Acknowledge their view, then articulate my observation. Okay, what's the third step? I imagine this is where we find a solution.
It is. And this is where most people make the final common mistake. They aim for compromise.
Compromise is bad? I thought compromise was the goal of any good negotiation.
It's what we are taught. Find the middle ground. If she says 4 weeks and I say 8 weeks, we compromise at 6. It feels fair, but it often fails quietly.
Why?
Because a compromise often means both parties are a little unhappy. The 6-week deadline might still be too fast to do high-quality work, and for your director, it might be too slow to beat the competition. The result is a weak solution that doesn't really achieve anyone's true goal.
So if we're not aiming for compromise, what are we aiming for?
You need your goals to converge. Don't negotiate on the positions, 4 weeks versus 8 weeks. Go up a level. Find the shared objective you both fundamentally agree on.
A shared objective? Like what?
You might ask, can we agree that our primary goal is a successful, on-time launch that gets positive reviews from customers? She can't say no to that. That's her goal too.
Right, of course.
Now you are no longer on opposite sides. You are on the same side, looking at the same goal. The conversation shifts completely. Now you can ask a new question. Given our shared goal of a successful launch, how can we best address the observation about the QA risk?
And that opens up new possibilities.
Exactly. Maybe the solution isn't changing the deadline from 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe it's breaking the project into smaller pieces. Maybe it's getting more resources for the QA team. Maybe it's reducing the scope of the first release. You stop fighting over the timeline and start creating solutions for the real goal. Acknowledge, articulate, converge. It sounds logical. It is a process. But Sarah, this all seems very idealistic. What if the other person is just difficult? What if my director is incredibly stubborn? Or she's under pressure from her own boss and just doesn't want to hear it? What if she just says, I hear your observation, but make it happen in 4 weeks? That can happen. This framework is not a magic trick to control other people. It's a method for controlling what you can, your own communication.
But if it doesn't work, what's the point?
The point is, you are making it as easy as possible for them to agree with you, and as difficult as possible for them to be unreasonable. When you validate their position and present a neutral observation tied to a shared goal, what can they argue with?
They can't really argue with my observation. It's what I see from my perspective.
And they can't argue with the shared goal. So their only option is to dismiss your concern. If they do that, they are no longer being a logical partner, and that requires a different approach. But you have to start here. It requires tenacity to stick to the process, even when you feel emotional pressure.
So you're saying I have to be prepared for it not to work, but follow the process anyway.
You follow the process because it gives you the best chance of success. It maintains the relationship even during a conflict. And it shows that you are a strategic thinker, not just a complainer. You're not just identifying problems, you are trying to solve them collaboratively.
So this whole system, it's a way of making sure the disagreement is productive, even if I don't get exactly what I want.
It's about building a coherent case for your perspective. Let's connect the pieces. You start by showing you understand their world. You validate their perspective. That builds trust. Then you offer your observation as a piece of shared data, not a weapon. That invites collaboration. Finally, you find a shared goal where your interests can converge, which moves the focus from personal positions to a shared solution.
So I'm not really disagreeing with her. I'm offering a new piece of information to help us make a better decision.
Exactly. The mindset shifts from me versus you to us versus the problem. This entire approach is built on that one idea.
It requires some self-control, though. My first instinct is to just say, that's wrong. It takes real tenacity to pause and go through these steps.
It does. It's a skill, not an instinct. But it's what makes communication effective. When you can validate someone's view before sharing your own, you maintain respect. And framing my view as an observation keeps things objective. It makes the conversation less emotional. Yes. And when you both converge on a higher goal, the small disagreements often become irrelevant. You find a better path forward. The whole argument becomes more coherent and less personal.
My meeting tomorrow, I was thinking of it as a confrontation I had to survive.
And now?
Now it feels different. It's not a fight. It's a discovery session. My job isn't to win. It's to make sure we have all the best information on the table so we can win together.
And you're both on the same team.